Hello everybody and welcome to another one of these Light and Land live streams. I am Sam Gregory, of course, and I'm saying hello from a hot and humid Dorset. It is a little bit on the warm side down here, so if you're watching live, do let me know in the comments where you're watching from. I can see a few people with us already. Chris Palmer actually with us on YouTube. Chris, you're going to get a mention later if it's the Chris Palmer I think it is. So if you're out there watching live, thank you very much. Do pop a comment into the box because tonight it is just me and you. I don't have any guests, it's just me. I'm going to be walking through some of the news and I'm going to be hopefully getting some comments from you guys and interacting with you all as well. So it's really helpful if you drop in some information, where you're watching from, say hello, and if you've got any comments and questions as we go, that's great. And if you're watching after the event, if you're not watching live, then hopefully you can still pick up some stuff from the news and all the various bits I'm going to talk about tonight. So what is this session? What is this live stream for? If you're new to watching this particular version, on other events we have photographers, usually light and land leaders, and we talk to them about their photographs, about the various locations that they've been to and that they might be going to. Whereas in this show, it is a kind of news roundup of all things photographic. So I'm just going to do half an hour or so, and it's going to be the latest news from Light and Land, including some new tours we've got coming up, some camera gear information, not too much on that, but a little bit. So new cameras from Leica and Fuji, I'm going to have a little chat about those. And also, I'm going to talk to you about self-publishing photographic books, because this is a topic that comes up, and there's a really neat new tool from a company out there, and I'm going to show you how, very briefly, the idea behind it and how it works, and how it might be useful for you if you're thinking of publishing your own photographic book, even on a very small scale. Say you just wanted to do 5 or 10 books, for example, for friends or for people who are interested in your work, then this thing I'm going to show you might be quite neat. So again, a little bit of a hello from me. If you've got any comments as we go along, do just pop them in the comments box and I'll pick them up as I go, or I shall certainly try to. Right, so that's pretty much the set out for the evening. We're going to get into some news. First thing, I'm going to do some light and land news. Then I'm going to do some general photographic news. Then we're going to talk about the self-publishing of the books. And then I'm going to finish with a special video actually from Charlie Waite about India and his trip to Rajasthan. So that will be our finish in about half an hour or so. Greetings from Florida to our, our viewer there. To give you good greetings from Florida. Fantastic. I said it was warm here in Dorset. I suspect it's even warmer in Florida. But without any further ado, let's get into some of the latest Light and Land news. Now, many of you hopefully will have seen already the live stream session that I did with Mark Seymour. That was a couple of weeks ago, and we talked about various photographs of his. We talked a lot about street photography and about travel photography as well, so hopefully you found that interesting. If you haven't caught that yet, do just jump onto the Light and Land YouTube channel and you'll be able to find that previous live stream session that I did with Mark Seymour, and we went all around the world: New York, Blackpool, Edinburgh, India, and probably one other that I can't remember, but there we go. But the reason I'm mentioning this session that we did a couple of weeks ago at the beginning of tonight's news show is because and this is one of the fantastic images from Mark that we talked about. Every month Light and Land do a sort of mini photographic competition. It's not anything grand scale, but we put the information out on our newsletter, and this month the competition is about street photography. So you'll see the details scrolling across the bottom of your screen. So this month's competition for Light and Land is street photography, and you can enter by June the 22nd. There's a couple of images you're allowed to enter, and you can email those over, and all the information about how to do that, like I say, is scrolling through at the bottom of the screen. And what we're looking for is just some of your images, either from a Light and Land tour or when you've been out shooting on your own in your own locations, whatever it might be. And the winner of that will get picked, and we share the winner on our social media channels and on the newsletter as well. And you get never-ending praise and adoration from the Light and Land office, and there's simply no better prize than that, and I won't be told otherwise. So with street photography kind of in mind, and this competition in mind, what I wanted to do on this little news show, which we do once a month, was introduce a little bit of a, what shall I call it, a new segment, which is going to be called Sam's Book of the Month. All right, and this is so you can, well, I can share with you guys, if you're watching, some books which I find interesting and useful, and I will try and pick them to be relevant to whatever the news or the recent guests that we've had are. So, on this occasion, the book I'm going to recommend to you all, if you're interested in learning more about street photography and seeing a vast array of different street photography from a variety of different practitioners of many ages and cultures, then I would recommend this book. It's called 100 Great Street Photographs. It's put together by David Gibson, who is himself a very good street photographer, and published by Prestel, and you can find it in all the usual book places online and or bricks and mortar, shall we say. And I know it sounds a little corny, doesn't it? 100 great something or the 10 best whatevers. You know, I'm always a bit wary of books like that because you think, well, there can't probably be a huge amount of depth in the content of it. But I think this is an excellent example of that not being the case. So this book has, as I've said, 100 great street photographs in it, but it's from a wide variety of people in a wide variety of cultures. And what makes it, I think, interesting, or especially interesting, is that David Gibson, the guy who wrote it, he curates and he comments upon all the images. So they're not his images, they're from about 100 different people, in fact. Some professional and very well known, such as Alex Webb, Martin Parr, and then others, maybe newcomers who David will have seen online or whatever it might be. So it's just a really cool selection of what I would call quite quirky street photography images within this book. And as I say, what I think makes it for me, though, is David's sort of comments, and critique's not quite the right word, but David's commentary upon each image. So each image is presented like this on a half page, and then next to that, or either the page before or after, there's a good 2 or 3 paragraphs on why he's chosen that image, what appeals to him about it, what works, maybe why that photographer stands out, how their work has been developing, whether this represents their work or not. And I know that David actually liaised with the photographers about which images were chosen, and there was obviously some conversations there, whereas he wanted some things, the photographers wanted other things. And as is true with work generally, the stuff we get very attached to isn't necessarily, quote unquote, the strongest. And so I would recommend this book, 100 Great Street Photographs, if you're interested in learning more about the genre as it stands today, and as the practitioners who are being highly respected are out there and what work they're making, then this is a really cool book to have a look at. And there's just a couple more pictures that I want to show you. I love this one of the underside of the seagull. And I think, like we talked about with Mark last week as well, a couple of weeks ago, sorry, street photography doesn't always have to be in the street. And that's why I wanted to share this image, which is obviously in a puddle somewhere, or a small body of water, let's say, and we've got this sort of contorted face. I think street photography, or the ethos of it, can be applied in the landscape or anywhere, in fact. It's more just about looking for the slightly odd, slightly quirky, you know, whatever it might be. So it's a really cool book to get your mind thinking in that fashion. Now, final plug then, 100 Great Street Photographs. There's nothing in this for me. I just think it's a good book, and I'm sure you'd probably all enjoy it. Let's get into a little bit of Light and Land news, and then we're going to touch on a couple of new tours that we've got listed recently, and then I'm going to talk about a couple of new camera bits of gear that are out, and then I'm going to talk about the self-publishing and the information about how you could self-publish a book very efficiently without spending any money, and you could sell it and you can make money. You have to stock it. It's a really neat new tool that's come out recently. But let's just cover a little bit of Light and Land news. We are going, and I say we in the royal we, obviously for Light and Land, to Berlin the 26th to the 29th of January. This is a brand new tour being led by Damien de Mulder, and that is going to be a 3-day tour in Berlin. A very, very, very interesting city. Here's Damien looking suitably suave, as any photographer should do in their headshot. But Berlin is an interesting city, as I say. Obviously, historically, there's all manner of interest there in terms of how the city was split up and all the stuff that happened in the Second World War, especially. But Damien brings more of that sort of street kind of travel vibe with his photography as well. And I think if you wanted a city break that's a little bit different, they're going in January, so it's going to be shortish days but long light. I think it could be a really cool place to go. There's all sorts of modern structures, older structures. There's a fairly vibrant graffiti kind of street scene there as well. And Damien is a very, very, very experienced photographer. He's been editor of many photographic magazines, amateur photography, I think it was. He was editor for a long time. Contributes to lots of magazines and online things. Done lots of workshops, lots of professional commercial work as well. And so Damien is a really, really excellent person if you're going to be in a European city, for him to guide you around. So as I say, this is coming up in January, and if you are a fan of your sort of street photography, travel photography, European cities, if you've not been to Berlin especially, this would be a really cool one to go on, and Damien will look after you, as of course we all would do when we're working for Light and Land. You can see here some of the types of scenes, and I've just picked a few of Damien's images to give you some feel. We'll be in and around, or he will be in and around the city with you, taking you to all the most interesting places graphically, light-wise, historically, you know, whatever it may be. Now, if you can't quite make it to Berlin, and or if you wanted something a bit closer to home and maybe just a shorter tour, we have got a couple of one-day workshops. So they're not tours really. They're one-day workshops coming up in September with Adrian Beasley. Now Adrian, many of you have watched the streams, you'll have seen Adrian on with me doing editing and some of his images we've talked about as well. He does obviously workshops for Light and Land, and they're a mix of shooting and of processing. And what we've actually managed to do for these trips, there's two London ones I'm going to tell you about. The first one is a black and white brutalist and modern buildings one-day workshop with Adrian, 4th of September. But it also includes a half-day online editing session the week after, or a couple of weeks after, sorry, 19th of September. So in these workshops, and here's Adrian again looking super suave, as I said, we all have to on our headshots. But in these one-day workshops, Adrian will be with you in the field on the day, obviously, so you can make the absolute most of the shooting availabilities. And in the brutalist and modern buildings, I think you start in the Barbican area and then you move through into the city, where there's obviously lots of very modern looking buildings, and so you'll get this kind of brutalist 60s, I think it was 60s, correct me if I'm wrong out there anyone, vibe of the architecture, and also you'll get some modern glass skyscrapers and things like that as well. And Adrian is a real expert at shooting architecturally, and also this is obviously a black and white themed day. So if you're looking at getting into black and white a bit more, or you want to hone your skills, or you want to learn a bit more about how your camera might work for you in black and white, then this would be a fantastic workshop to go on. I mentioned there'll be a half-day editing session. That's all included in the price. And so the point is you spend the day on the 4th of September doing the shooting, so you can just worry about the shooting. You'd have to take a laptop. You just take your camera, 1 or 2 lenses at the most, travel fairly light, work with Adrian. He'll be giving you all the advice, tips and best views and everything else that you need. And then a couple of weeks after, you can all jump online together. Adrian will lead the session. He'll walk through the editing. He'll show you some extended black and white editing techniques, working with his images, working with your images. And so this would be a really cool day, as I say, if you want to really get into your black and white photography, especially if you enjoy architectural black and white photography. And if it's something you've never done, go nuts, do something different. It's really good to challenge yourself photographically. Now the second thing of Adrian's, in fact, I wanted to mention, which is happening just a couple of days after this, is more of a, I don't want to call it generic, but it's a broader black and white photography one-day event in the City of London. So it's not strictly focusing on the brutalist and the modern architecture, it's more the street scenes you'd find, some of the architecture obviously, anything interesting that Adrian finds on the day. You might be in and out of marketplaces, on the street, looking at the architecture, looking at the historical things, whatever it may be. And again, Adrian is an expert with his black and white. So he knows London and these areas inside and out, and he will be taking you all around. And just like the other one, this one-day session on the 6th of September includes a half-day editing session after the fact. And I think this is a really neat way of doing things. And actually, the one good thing about COVID, if there was one, was it meant people were more open to doing online sessions. And it's really meant that we can now offer, through Light and Land, so many sort of hybrid events where some of it is in person, the bits you need to be there for with the camera on the location, but the leader and the guests can all concentrate on the shooting there and then. And then after the fact, when you've had time to sift through your images, when you're on your own computer, we can go through some of the editing with you. And I think this is a really cool way to do it. So if you're interested in either of these, jump online, lightandland.co.uk, and you'll be able to see those. They just both have, I believe, 2 or 3 spaces left. That is it. And these are September the 4th and September the 6th. And these are one day in London. And you can see here, obviously, a little bit of the kind of scenes that you'll be coming across. I've done one of these with Adrian when I was doing some videoing with him, and it was great to watch him in action, helping people and taking people to some really cool locations in London, which I didn't know. Certainly photographically I didn't know either. Some of them obviously are much more famous than others. Right, after that, let's go a little bit further afield. And I'm going to only talk briefly about this India trip because we've got some other news, and as I say, I want to leave time to talk about the publishing of the self-publishing of the books information that I've promised you as well. Little plug though, final one from a Light and Land point of view. We have got a romantic Rajasthan photography tour coming up. This is with Charlie Waite. Charlie only does selected tours these days. He's a very busy boy. And that's from the 15th to the 29th of November. So this is not a short tour. This is and I know I said it last time, and I probably shouldn't overuse the phrase, but this genuinely is, I would say, a once in a lifetime opportunity in many ways. One, you're going to spend a couple of weeks with Charlie in the field, and that will be excellent for your photography. That's all I can say, having spent some time with him co-leading and doing other bits with Charlie. He's fantastic at helping people and making them learn about photography and see photography in a thoroughly different light. But also, even aside from being with Charlie for a couple of weeks, which is well worth anybody's money, you're going to be visiting all manner of places in India, in and around, obviously, Rajasthan. Now, I'm just going to flick through a couple of these images just to give you a little taster, but I'm actually going to leave the main chat about this till the end of the live stream, where we're going to finish with a video, a pre-recorded video with Charlie talking about Rajasthan and the tour and where you'll be going and some of the exciting things that would be happening upon this trip. I have never been to India, and if there was a way for me to weasel my way onto this trip, I would have achieved that. Unfortunately, no one in the office seemed keen on my idea to have some sort of background documentary going on, so I'm afraid it's going to be one of you guys that gets to go instead of me. But I think it's an amazing place, and I think with Charlie, and I know there's some specialist guides who are going to be working on the ground with the group, both from a photographic and from a touring point of view, locals who know all the best places and all the right places to be. I think this will be a really, really amazing trip. So this is coming up in November. There's just one place left. That is it. And when it's done, it's done. There will be no more places. So if that is of interest to you, jump on the website Romantic Rajasthan with Charlie Waite for 2 weeks in November this year. Right. I'm going to have 2 or 3 little bits of generic photographic news for you, so just bear with me. They may be of interest to you, they may not be. You may be fully happy with your gear and have no interest in any more gear, or you may be an absolute gear hound and always want to know what's coming out and always looking at changing. I don't mind, whatever you like, it's all good with me. We're going to talk about just a couple of new things that have come out, and then, like I say, I'm going to talk to you about the book publishing. So first things first, Fuji have brought out a new XS20 XS20. Now this is a very affordable, it's about 1250-ish pounds, mid-range kind of camera, I would call it. Very light, excellent in my opinion if you were going on any of these sorts of street/travel sort of tours. Obviously it's not a big landscape, i.e. big heavy landscape camera. It is more probably for your travel, for your street. What's really cool about this new one actually though, which I noticed, is there is a much bigger battery in use in this XS20 compared to the old XS10, I think it was. So basically it's double, you get double the life out of that battery, up to 750 frames with standard usage. And with a mirrorless, that is not shy. Trust me, I've been through a few different brands and a few different cameras. That's a good amount of life from one battery. The other really interesting thing about this one is, well, autofocus is improved, but everybody says that every time. Very difficult to kind of really see that. But the IBIS, so the in-body stabilization on these Fujis is pretty fantastic. And what that allows you to do is shoot in much lower light with much slower shutter speeds without getting any motion blur. And the IBIS in this covers you down to about 7 stops, which is pretty stonking if you think about it. And in reality, I think that would mean perhaps in the field, shall we say, you could probably be shooting at around a quarter or an eighth of a second handheld without having any issues in terms of motion blur, which is pretty good, because with most cameras, depending on your dexterity and calmness of hand, you can probably get to about 60th, maybe a 30th if you're very lucky. But with this 7 stops of stabilization, you can easily get down to, like I say, those fractions, quarters of a second, something like that, which is crazy. You could never do that many years ago. And obviously with all these newer cameras, you get improved video capabilities. I think it's up to about 6.2K on this Fuji, and you can shoot 4K 60 frames per second from the top of my head. Now some of you might be thinking, well, I don't care about video, I'm a photographer. That's true, but a lot of the people, if you're producing videos for YouTube, or if it's a second camera, or if you're doing any commercial work at all, you do often need to know and worry about the video specs. So this Fuji XS20, I would say pretty good value actually at 1249. Certainly if you've already got some X series lenses and you wanted to add a second body, this would be a really neat little bit of kit. Now changing gear a little bit financially, I mentioned in the last news there was the Leica monochrome. Since then the Leica Q3 has come out, and this is the last of the gear I'm going to talk about. It's a bit of a monster, and I'm going to say, I don't know about you, and I know it's not important because it's what you do with it that counts, but that's a pretty camera, I think. I think that's a very pretty camera. Do we agree? Do we not agree? Let me know in the comments. Let me know what you think. I think that's beautiful. For anyone who doesn't know or hasn't used the Leica Q series, they are very neat, very compact, and they have a fixed lens. Let me just put the information up for you. It's a 28mm fixed lens f1.7. Now you could argue that is restrictive, especially if you're a landscape photographer. You probably want the extra chance to have longer lenses, a zoom, whatever it might be. Now within that fixed 28mm lens there are kind of false zooms of I believe 50mm and 70mm. I should have checked that, but I think it's those. So you can actually operate it as if you're using a fixed 50mm or a longer lens on there as well, and it just uses a little bit lower, or it outputs less megapixels, shall we say. It uses the same size and the full size of the sensor. The big thing about this Leica though, great street photographer's camera. We've been very street photography heavy tonight, haven't we? That won't always be the case, but it just happens to be tonight. Very quick bursts, so up to 15 frames a second. If you're trying to capture something that's unfolding in front of you on the street, that quick burst using the electronic shutter is really useful. I mentioned the fixed lens, that has the barrel focal lengths on as well. So we talked last time about street focusing in the street, maybe using the zone focusing system. That's a lot easier if the lens has the focusing length on it. Maybe we'll do another session about that sometime. And the final thing about this Leica, which is very neat, is it has finally a tiltable display. You may all have cameras and you think, well, of course, they all do, don't they? Well, the Leica until now did not. It had a fixed back of the screen, and obviously the tiltable display is very neat if you're shooting lower down from the hip at a funny angle. especially if you're videoing, I find the tiltable display is pretty much necessary. So the Leica has now introduced that. But at a mere £5,300, I'm going to throw this out there. You could spend that on the Leica, or you could spend that on 2 or 3 tours, and I know which would help your photography more. It isn't the Leica, I'm sorry to say, everybody. But if you've got 10 grand, then buy one of those and have the tours and everybody's happy. All right, little bit of news now about an event I want to talk about, and then we're going to get into the book chat, and I'm going to run just a couple of minutes long, but that's okay. We're all friends. We can take a bit of extra 5-10 minutes. That's no worries. Photo Fest. So if you're in the UK, Photo Fest is on September the 10th. That is at the University of Bath. Yes, I am from the north, and I do say Bath. I don't say Bath because there's no R in it. Why would you say Bath? That's crazy. It's Bath. Anyway, joking aside, Photo Fest is the 10th of September. What is Photo Fest? It's a day run by the wonderful people at PhotoSpeed. There are 4 visiting photographers who give long-form talks about their photography, presenting their work, talking about their trips, their ethos, whatever it might be. That includes Nigel Danson, obviously of YouTube fame, Amy Bateman, who's done a lot of work on, you may have seen her on Twitter, farm-related photography. There's a lot more to it than that, but I'm on a tight timeline here, everyone. Paul Sanders, many of you may know, and Jack Perks, who's a fantastic wildlife, aquatic, actually, photographer. So, 10th of September, if you fancy coming along to that, I will be there. I'll be hosting and I'll be doing a Q&A session, but that's inducement enough, I'm sure, for anyone. Early bird pass is available, £36 if you fancied that, and that is, as I say, on the 10th of September. Now, what I've got to do is just remove that from my screen, and I'm just going to get this chat that we talked about with the books and the publishing ready, and I shall pop that back into the stream. Now, by the way, thank you for watching if you're still with us now. We're going to just do 5 or 10 more minutes, that's all. I'm going to spend 5 minutes talking about the book publishing, and I'm going to finish with Charlie Waite's Rajasthan video, which will be the final 5 minutes. If you've got any questions at all, hit me in the comments. I can see a couple of comments, but I haven't got access to as many as I would usually see, but I can see a good number of you on the stream. So I'm just wondering actually whether I am seeing all the comments or not. But if you can drop something in there, if I don't reply, it's because I can't see it, not because I'm not wanting to answer your questions. All right, let's add the information then about the book publishing. So what I should just say at this point is this next 5 minutes is relevant to you if you've got a body of work that you wanted to put together in a book, but you were unsure perhaps about printing 50 or 100 books because you're worried about whether you're going to sell them. That's one big worry. Do you want to buy that many books not knowing you're going to sell them? Do you have enough customers for it? Where are you going to store them? How are you going to ship those books to that customer? Where are you going to buy the packaging? Blah, blah, blah. It goes on. And in fact, I've actually done a video for PhotoSpeed last year about top 10 tips for self-publishing your photographic books. And I would urge you, to seek that out on YouTube, and I'll just remind you about that at the end of this little session as well, because I talk about all the logistics that you have to think about. If you're going to self-publish a book, let's say it's fairly small scale, and you just want to make, I don't know, 50 copies or 100 copies of a book that you hope to sell to your friends, social media followers, family, uncle, dentist, whatever it might be. Before, you'd have to either find a print house, or recently you've been able to use online things like this company, which is called Mixam, where you can upload the images and or the PDFs or whatever you've organized it into. They print the books or the zines, whatever you want to call it. They send you them, and if you order enough of them, it brings the book price down to, between sort of £5 and £10, and then maybe you can sell it for 12 or 15. You then, like I say, you have to ship it, you have to have a Royal Mail account, you have to buy the packaging. It's basically a big faff. Now, what Mixam have done, and by the way, again, there's nothing in this for me, I just think it's a neat solution for something that was cropping up quite regularly. Mixam have introduced this system called Print Link, and it's print on demand. So what it means is very simple. You can go on their website create your book. So you can choose from a variety of things: hardcover books, paperback books, but photo quality, books for reading, hardcover reading, whatever it might be. So let's just say, for the sake of argument, we're going to make a photo quality book. And so this, let's say we've got however many, 40 images or something. We could choose photo quality, choose color, obviously, unless it's a black and white book, even then. Let's say we're going to choose 210 by 210, which is quite a nice square shape. Paperweight 170, you get the idea, blah de blah. Let's give it about 44 pages, something like that. And what happens is they work out your price per copy, which in this instance is £7.50, which is pretty good. By the way, I haven't done any fiddling with laminations or anything like that. This is just an example, everyone. Bear with me. And what you can do then is you can upload your pages / your photos, create the book, and they will send you a proof copy, a physical proof copy. So you get one, so you can see what it looks like, you can check it, you can make sure it looks how you want it to look. And then instead of you having to buy 50 or 100 or 200 or 500 and store them somewhere and hope you sell them and commit to that money and commit to that space, there's simply a link that you can send out to people, or you can have on your website, or in the same way you would have promoted the physical thing you had, you just promote via the link and you say, this is where you can buy my book. And people can buy the book through Mixam, and you can set the price. So you can still make money if that's what it's about. If it's not what it's about, then just charge what you are getting charged by Mixam. That's fine as well. Or you could do it for charity. You could say £3 is going to charity, whatever, it doesn't matter. You get the link, you promote the link, promote your book, promote your Zine, whatever it might be. The customer, the viewer, the punter, goes online, buys from Mixam, which they would have had to do, for example, from your website, but they get to do it through Mixam. And Mixam ship the book out direct to the customer. So you don't have to pack it, you don't have to stock it, you don't have to commit financially. If you sell 10 books, you make a little bit. If you sell 100 books, you make a bit more. If you sell 59 books, it doesn't matter. It's fantastic. I really think this is a great idea for small scale self-publishing. Having done it a couple of times myself, not through Mixam, but through an actual print house, I know how much of a faff it can be to fulfill orders. Whereas these guys, they're fulfilling orders all day long, every day. That's what they're to do. They've got the web checkout. It's already there. You don't have to worry about putting a web checkout on your own website. You can set the price, and also you can set up a preview so that viewers can see within the book what it's going to look like. And you can choose how much of the book you want to show. So you may decide, I just want to show the front cover and a couple of spreads from the inside, because obviously you don't want to give everything away, especially if it's new work. And so people can go online, check out a couple of the spreads, see if they like the look of it, and if they like the look of it, bang, they can order it through Mixam. You don't have to do anything. You've done the hard work, you've taken the pictures, you put the book together. That's the hard enough, right? You don't want to have to turn into an Amazon. And this is a really cool thing to do. So mixam.co.uk, print link, print on demand is what you can search for. This is the general Mixam homepage, and if you go to the self-publish tab up here in the top right, there's a little link to it there as well for you. Now, just because everything in life, there's always a caveat. Nothing's ever quite as beautiful and as easy as it might seem. One thing to remember is the only downside of this that I can really see is you don't see the product really before it gets to your customer. You will have had your hard proof from Mixam printed on one day on one machine, and then the customer ordering 2 weeks later gets a version printed off a different machine on a different day. You might say, well, that shouldn't be any different because I've set the book up, they've got the print info. I'm going to tell you it could be different, because different machines from different companies at different times of day, it could be the inks have just been reset, it could be 90% through its ink run. There might be very, very, very slight variations. So the caveat here is, if this is a fairly small scale thing, perhaps a little Zine or a little thing you want to do with the family, or just you want to sell 50 copies of some kind of smaller scale project, this is neat. If you're looking at putting your global work out there, the thing you've worked hard on for years, and it has to be beautiful, and you want to see every book before it goes out to a customer. You want to check it. You might be adding a print. It's a more premium, shall we say, self-published book. I don't think this is the right thing. I personally, for anything of that nature, which I would want to charge more for because it's a more involved project, I would want to know I've seen and checked every single book, even if that's 300 of them. I would physically, and did on my book sales, check each book before it went out for any kind of issues with the print, or you know what I'm saying. So that's the only caveat, but I think actually that's not a bad caveat to throw out and to deal with. So anyway, Mixam for all of you out there who are interested in doing that from a self-publishing point of view. And like I say, if you did want to know more, let me just get my screen back. There we go. If you did want to know more about the video that I did, hopefully I'm going to just put this up there for you in a second. As I say, it was on YouTube, and there it is, there I am. It's called 10 Top Tips for Self-Publishing a Photography Book. You can find that on the Photospeed YouTube channel, so just search Photospeed Self-Publishing and you'll probably find it. And so I run through, it's 25 minutes, it's not a short video, I run through everything I learnt from the process of self-publishing 2 books, so I think it was 500-ish books in total over the 2 books, about the packing, all the stuff I got wrong and found out, I tell you on this video, so you don't have to get it wrong, you can just get it right from the outset. Now, we are very nearly there. Thank you so much for hanging along with me and watching so far. There's one other video I want to mention, and it's been a bit Photospeed heavy today, but you know, they're friends with Light and Land, it's all good. They recently put up a video which I was involved in with Chris Palmer, who's a fantastic photographer, very experienced photographer, and very experienced within the RPS. And Chris is also a Photospeed ambassador like myself, and Chris was very kindly spent some time with us at Photospeed, and we recorded this video talking about the RPS panels, so the AR, the LR and the FR, and all the things that you can do. So if you've ever been interested in learning about the RPS and the qualifications / panels / associations, fellowships, whatever you want to call it, you can achieve through those, through that system, then on the Photospeed channel, they've just put this up in the last couple of days. What are RPS distinctions is the name of the video, and you can jump over there maybe after this. Stay with me though, after this, and you can watch that video of myself, Chris Palmer, and Tim Jones, who's the Photospeed guru as well. And Tim, I'm hoping, is going to join us on one of these news shows in the future talking about printing, and so that is coming down the pipes as well. But for today, we are pretty much there. What I'm just going to do is knock that off. I'm going to mention 2 things, and then I'm going to finish with the video that Charlie has recently put out, which is just a little background about the Rajasthan trip. I'm going to finish though by saying our next live stream is in 2 weeks' time, and Astrid McGeechan is joining me, and we're going to be here on the Tuesday the 27th of June at 8 p.m. and we're going to be talking all things Astrid, which is basically some of her upcoming tours and trips, and we're going to talk about her photography style, how it's varied, how it changes. We're going to be in Andalusia, Valencia, we're going to be visiting Santorini, and we're going to be talking about night workshops, so working in the city at night, and because she does a couple of overnight kind of one-day workshops which are really cool as well. So Astrid will be with us in a couple of weeks' time, but for me, I'm going to finish up and I'm going to pop up the video of Charlie in Rajasthan, and that will finish us, and then we will go off the air when the video finishes. I would say thank you very much for watching me. Do stay with us for the next few minutes. Hear Charlie's dulcet tones as he takes you through some of the Rajasthan background, and I will be with you again in 2 weeks' time with Astrid, and we'll be talking all about her photography and inviting questions, technique, locations, whatever it might be you want to know about. But thank you for watching this show with me, and I hope to see you next time.
Namaste. It is a pleasure to welcome you to our amazing photography adventure through Rajasthan, the land of kings. Rajasthan is India at its exotic and colourful best. With photographers in mind, this tour is a unique blend of the major attractions together with undiscovered delights to offer some truly fabulous photography opportunities. Our tour reveals Udaipur, a charming city of whimsical palaces and tranquil lakes. A cruise on the romantic Lake Pichola offers wonderful views of the regal buildings. On one side is the massive city palace, while on the other, clusters of homes, temples, and public buildings are set against the distant Avali hills. Outside the city of Udaipur, we'll walk through a unique village called Delwara, where highly skilled villagers make the finest fabrics and home furnishings. Fascinating. Following Udaipur, we step off the tourist track to stay in the gorgeous Rajasthan fort at Sadagar. You'll stay at the former home of Rajasthan's royalty, where to step outside the palace is to walk into a world that has barely changed in the last 3 or 4 centuries. While at Sadagar, we'll also take a short ride on a genuine village train, passing through villages in the fascinating countryside. Monkeys from the neighbouring temples like to hitch a ride on the train as it clings on to the hillsides. Next, it's on to Jodhpur, where the imposing Marhanga fort sits majestically atop a hill, dominating the old parts of what's known as the Blue City. You'll understand why on the Jodhpur Heritage Walk, when you'll see clusters of blue-coloured houses separated by narrow lanes. The Blue City is a busy, self-contained ecosystem of homes, bazaars, temples, and traditional crafts bursting with amazing colours to grab your attention. From Jodhpur, we will head to Pushkar to experience the incredible atmospheric Pushkar Fair. The sunrise over the dunes is really so special here, and the smoke of the gypsy campfires creates a fine, fuzzy atmosphere. Photography in Pushkar is quite challenging but rewarding too. The dates of the Pushkar Fair visit have to be carefully selected, as 2 things happen there. First, there is the great animal fair, when thousands of camels are brought in to be traded. Then, later, the fair becomes a religious event, when the full moon brings millions of pilgrims to take a dip at the Pushkar Lake. A complete festival environment is created where you could see dancers, acrobats, animals, a village circus, markets, and pavement shops. A truly unforgettable experience. Then we move on to the crown jewels of India, the main attractions of Delhi, Agra, and Jaipur. A unique heritage tour of Old Delhi will be conducted by a very special guide who has done intensive research on the back streets of Chandigarh, bringing to life centuries, old stories, and intrigues. This tour is like walking through a living museum. Then in Jaipur, we will experience a popular heritage walk, exploring the bazaars, crafts, and cuisines of this amazing city. This walk will help you get under the skin of the real Jaipur for a better understanding of its people and culture. Also in Jaipur, we have a special tour of block making and printing to give you hands-on experience on this valued craft of Rajasthan. The Bagru is a little town outside Jaipur, well known for its unique art of Bagru block printing on fabrics. It's one of the major areas of textile printing in Rajasthan, with over 100 home factories. This tour will reveal tiny shuttered shops with men smiling as they squat on their wooden stools, chopping the wooden blocks into most intricate designs with the most utmost precision. This tour to Rajasthan is one that I have personally been looking forward to for very many years, and I look forward to joining you there in wonderful Rajasthan.